The BBC had booked a studio slot at the top of the Olympic Broadcasting Centre on the Trocadero, overlooking the Trocadero. So they had a view of the Eiffel Tower in the background. That's roughly the footprint. We've dropped in the Tokyo seating there, so you can roughly see how a 2+4 would work. 4-camera presentation and 5th camera on a rail behind. Again, Toby got started with the designs on this one. And learning from what we'd learned before with Pres 2 and things like that, we decided instead of photography, we're going to surround it with buildings. We're going to create a virtual Paris, as it were. So we had the Eiffel Tower out that way, and then the reverse shots would all be virtual and backed by this, this square. So this is, Toby started off with this, just the space. Again, similar to Tokyo, it's kind of like a pavilion, immersed fully within a virtual square. Getting rid of photography saves so many hassles, although we were going to have to build all the buildings from scratch. That design developed, and after a certain point, Toby would then start focusing on the physical set, and I'd take over focusing on the virtual elements. We developed it inside Unreal 5 as early as possible. The BBC wanted it to be Unreal 5, and if possible, using Lumen. So we just started off with that, Unreal 5.2. And we really started to think of the set as a real piece of architecture, a found piece of architecture this time. And we wanted the physical and the virtual elements to be intertwined, both part of the same world. So physical element would be roughly here, here, and then across the floor. And then everything else would be either green screen or masked. And these are images from the pitch. So this is the pitch design that you're seeing now. The idea is kind of there, but it still looks a bit funky up in the glass lanterns. The glass floor is not quite worked out, but it's getting there. And so the concept that we delivered was a found structure with modern additions. We based it in the sort of the Belle Epoque, the fin de siècle, turn of the century Paris, where the Paris Exposition took place when the Eiffel Tower was built. It was going to be a riveted iron structure, about 135 years old, with layers of paint, scratches, rusting, weathering, and located in a square that we hoped people would think was sort of evocative of Montmartre, somewhere like that. We realized reference was going to be key. So once we'd won the job, so we got on Eurostar, we went to Paris, and we took 1 million photographs, I'm sure of it. Don't try and guess with your reference. If you can get to it and you can point a camera at it yourself, I recommend you do it. You will be amazed at what you discover, whether it's stupid little things like tar wedged in between the cobbles on the road, the scratches on the posts at the side of the road, litter, graffiti. But it's all the detail there. It's that richness and that texture, and it just sort of screams Paris. And what we were trying to do was capture that and work out what it was, distill it, recognize it for what it was, details, scale and texture. This is Toby. He'd forgotten his tape measure, so I used Toby as a size reference. So anything that we had to get a size for, I made him stand next to. But it's that idea of scale, of texture, of what it feels like. You almost want to feel what a place is like. And then little things as well that we didn't necessarily spot at the time, but did afterwards, looking at the photos. And you got these little mosaic graffiti tiles, and the leaves in the tree pits, the road signs, all that Parisian urban design that screams Paris. And this is where the architecture bit of me really got excited, was looking at the iron architecture from that period. I would never have designed anything like that at college, probably would never design anything like that in real life. But just looking at riveted architecture and its place in architectural history and in the history of Paris itself. This is in the department store called Le Samaritain. And they've recently refurbished it. The structure in there is just gorgeous. It really is. I really recommend it. I also recommend the Paleontology Museum. Again, it's all these flourishes of iron architecture, and it's that period where they're trying to work out, okay, we've got this new material. Well, how do we do it? What do we do with it? So these are the first versions of our set. So I turned this into an iron structure, or what I thought the iron structure would be. Set it out on a grid, worked out what the fixing plates would be, how big the rivets would be, detail like that. Adding in rust. Really, I was enjoying myself here. This is quite early, I can tell, because we've got cast circular columns at this stage, which then became the riveted columns. They may have changed to riveted after we'd been to the La Samaritain and saw what they were doing there. So this is essentially the Paris pavilion. The main set is at the back. They could use that inner space up there for presenting, and then this would all be surrounded by the Paris Montmartre Square. So here's the structure. The lanterns still need developing, the glass lanterns, but it's getting there. You can see it start to take shape. Here's this shows how we often have to deal with the real and the virtual. It's very important to get this right at the beginning. It takes careful design. The more attention you can put on that at the beginning, if you ever do a combined physical virtual set, the better it will be, the more successful it would be. So lots of conversation. We're talking about the whole design all the time. And then this particular interface was the one where we were really having to get granular, get down to detail. And then we tested. Test often, test early, test as much as you can. And regardless of how much testing time you think you've got, double it, because you always need more. Obviously, we couldn't have the Paris studio because it hadn't been built yet. So we mocked up the studio in the top floor of one of the buildings at Salford Quays. So we had one half of the physical set, flats, at one side. We had our green screen area. We had MDF mock-ups of the sofa and the table. Worked on this for testing. And what you're looking for, this is really important. If you ever work in TV, the first time that the directors will really, especially if this is, I'm talking directors in terms of sport and news, the first time they will fully interact with their set and design is when you're testing. Test your paint colours, test your seating design, test your camera angles. Where do your singles fall? You will spend a lot of time looking at singles. Remember, you sell on the wide, but the directors will zone in on the singles. So you're always looking for something interesting in the back of shot, which means that you've got to think about a small patch of set, which you don't often think is going to be important. And then you do a test and you think, okay. After that, we realized that we're going to have to work up the detail. So to make something really work, if you want a Parisian to think it might be Paris, I know that's probably a big conceptual jump, but what did we see? Well, dirt. It wasn't filthy, but buildings get old, they get stains. You will see graffiti. The graffiti was spray paint, but they also had these mosaic tiles. So this one, there used to be the ones in Paris are based on Space Invaders, so old 8-bit graphics. There used to be a game called Track and Field. And Track and Field was about track athletes and field athletes. So I found a reference to what the pixel composition for that was, and I did a version of Michael Johnson winning his gold medal in the 400 meters at Atlanta. Named the square plus Michael Johnson. I don't think he ever saw it, but it was there if he wanted it. Anybody use Unreal? Does that make you feel ill? Yeah. Performance. We'd lit the night scene. We were using Lumen in Unreal 5, and we were killing performance. I mean, killing it in performance was dying on us. And we were struggling up to about 2 weeks before launch. Lots of sleepless nights, worrying about where can we solve this. I was more used to using light mass, so putting the lights in and then baking it. Lumen is completely different. Lumen looks better, but Lumen uses up the GPU. And then I had a eureka, and I got it to this. We were on track again. We were running. This was the night scene. So we went from this is in progress, and then I managed to get it to that, and I think there's only 8 lights in the whole scene. So that's using emissive geometry, emissive materials on geometry. And then I'm going to show you, this is rehearsal. So once we've done all that work, we finally get to the rehearsal. So this is the Thursday morning. The Olympics opening ceremony is on the Friday. But to launch their big shows, they always do a little pre-record for the one show.
How about there? Yeah, BT, here we go. 3, 2, 1, cue, and cue.
Yes, here we are in the square below the studio with our very own BBC Sport coffee van. And I tell you what, coffee is what we'll be needing because we're going to go super early in the morning. What are you looking forward to, JJ?
Croissants, but also the triathlon. I will be down at the finish line, hopefully cheering on some British medal success. And yourself?
The athletics for me,
of course
for
it
sure.
is.
The athletics for me.
Right, well, make sure you join us at 8 o'clock on BBC One on Saturday morning. Au revoir.
Thank you.